And so we've got our special guest, and you guys, we're going to go ahead and bring on Ryan Parsons here. And as we do, I'll let you guys kind of kick it off. Ryan, how you doing?
I'm very well, Brian. How are you this afternoon?
It's always good to hear from you. I'm very excited about today's show and what we're going to be talking about. And so I'll kind of let you guys dig into a little bit.
All right, we will see you, man. So Ryan, tell us, this guy, I've known Ryan for 8-10 years now, and we have had a lot of fun together. I have learned a lot from this gentleman, and he is just a wealth of knowledge. And you guys would have read, his bio in the blurb advertising today's show. But Ryan, tell us a little bit about who you are and kind of, what brought you to where you are today.
Well, Joe, thank you very much. It's an awfully kind introduction there, and it's always a pleasure to be part of the NoteSchool and NoteSchool TV here right now, watching what you guys do to really help investors understand and be the best investors that they can as it relates to the note space. And so it's a great pleasure to support that and be with you here today, Joe, because part of what our mission is and my mission is, both in my life personally and for the lives of our clients that we serve in Mile Marker Club, is to really help investors make and keep work optional. And that's been a big mantra of mine. And you referenced the 2008, the last big, market correction, or maybe we're in a big market correction now. But that from that period of time in my life, Joe, was really about trying to identify what does Ryan's best life look like, and what do we want our, we only have 24 hours a day, and it's the most precious resource we all have is our time. And so what do we want that to look like? And so, I've had great mentors and great clients to serve, and great friends like you, Joe, around to really help me do that and think through that. And that's a big part of what we help our clients do today at Mile Marker Club. And obviously wrapping around all things wealth, all things your treasury, to allow the financial engine to live your best life.
There you go. And so very well said, my friend. And, I have listened to you, and if any of these guys have been to our 3-day class, on day one at lunch, you do a note talk, which talks about what the wealthy know about notes. And you're right. What your mission, as I see it, is just as you say. It's been to help people lead that best life, and again, make notes or make work optional. So, Ryan, so as you and with your business and with your fund, with the Mile Marker Club, and so on. So, where do you think at this point? What do you think's happening out there? And then, of course, I want to get around just a minute to talking about, your passion, right? Showing your passion for notes. But what are you thinking about this market cycle that we're in, and how does notes fit into that?
Yeah, it's a great question, Joe, because just my own personal portfolio, and I don't know if we're seeing my screen here or not, Joe, if that's being shared with your audience.
We do. Let's see. Yep, there you go.
Very, very good. So, notes, is just a big passion of mine. Obviously, the very special relationship that we enjoy together between Mile Marker Club and NoteSchool is really helped me see with my own personal wealth, what the power of owning debt is. And notes, particularly discounted notes, and the power of all of that. And so, in today's market, it's something that we really think about from a lot of different facets, but it's this idea, Joe, of an optimal financial world. And this idea of keeping work optional requires an optimal financial world. So, if Eddie were on here with us right now, I'm sure he'd turn that into a nice tongue twister. So that's why I have to slow it down a little bit.
There would be an Eddieism there, no doubt, right?
Absolutely, there would be. So, Joe, my thoughts on the market, and just as the quick disclaimer that we're just having a conversation here, and it's not investment advice or any sort of investment guidance here, but this idea of how notes play into this market cycle. I think for any investor to understand this is that, market cycles are what they are. The marketplace is what the marketplace is.
Right.
All that we as investors can do is take what the market is giving us within the framework that we do control as an investor. Okay. I don't control stock prices. I don't control note prices. I don't control cost of cap. I don't control any of those massive macro market conditions. All I can control is what, for me, does an optimal financial world look like? And it really is three key pieces that go into this framework. The first one, Joe, is really what I call precision, meaning making sure I maximize my goals. So whatever I want from my best life, while making sure work stays optional for me, that is the first key framework of what I call precision. You've got to know exactly what your goals are, both quantitative and qualitative goals. So this isn't just a hardcore, number, although I am a numbers guy, but you have to understand all of those goals, both the esoteric and some of the softer ones, as well as the hardcore data ones. Second part of this framework, for the investors that we serve, particularly higher net worth individuals and entrepreneurs, higher net worth families. The second big thing is what I really refer to as access, or having authentic confidence that you've got the right people to help you achieve those very precise goals. And that comes in a lot of different experts, when I think of notes and I need help with my note portfolio, NoteSchool is my absolute go-to, absolute expert when it comes to that, whether I'm talking with you, Joe, whether I'm talking with Eddie, whether I'm talking with Bob, Susan, or any of the experts at the NoteSchool team. That's access. The third part of the framework that we really look at to understand how the current market conditions apply to our wealth, and specifically then with notes, is how do you implement the plan to get those comprehensive results? In other words, making sure you're staying on track. And so in any market condition, this framework that all investors possess that are really deliberate about keeping work optional and achieving the level of financial independence is the precision of knowing their goals, access with the right people, so you've got the truly authentic confidence to go forward and implement the plan to make sure that you stay on track. So with that kind of that backdrop, Joe, of why notes in this marketplace, what the biggest element that investors have to face with their any investment portfolio, notes included, is all about reducing risk and reducing exposure. And one of the elements that notes from an exposure or risk standpoint brings is that downside protection, meaning as you buy a discounted note in the first lien position, you are secured by presumably a single family residential property. There's all kinds of different notes, but you're focusing on the resi side of the business here for purposes of this discussion anyway. And what you just said in your news, Joe, which was so spot on, that shortage of inventory or housing units in this country today is causing the collateral value that is securing your loan to increase, while the borrower is paying down their mortgage, so your exposure is less. And so one of the
both ways, right?
It's all good. I think
all good. It's all good, Ryan. It's all good.
That's right. Excuse me. So, but from a wealth perspective and a risk management perspective, Joe, that's one of the areas that we see the families that we serve, why they like loans so much in their portfolio, or at least a portion of their portfolio anyway, is that inverse relationship of collateral value going up and loan balance or your exposure into the deal going down, especially if you bought the loan even at a discount, you might have even less exposure. Right. That is a key element of managing risks that notes as an asset class can bring to any investor's portfolio if it's managed right and thought through, right back to that framework I mentioned a moment ago. So that's one of the areas, even right now, Joe, with asset prices rising because of liquidity and other things that are happening just as a market condition. That's why notes still has a place, and for some investors that are even more active with managing their note portfolios, buying notes, may even have a greater desire to have that because it can magnify this risk management components that notes bring.
Well, and Ryan, the other part of that is that with notes versus some other investment, the collateral behind this is something real, right?
Yes.
You can put your hands on it, you can touch it, you can feel it. It's not air.
Well, and that's exactly right, Joe. And that's another one of these elements, as I mentioned in the framework discussion there. That's for each individual investor to decide what is their backstop, what is their downside protection. And if you like real estate as your collateral, that's exactly right, Joe, from that perspective, because another reason that a lot of the families that we serve also see notes as a good long-term play in their portfolio beyond the downside protection, beyond the current cash flow, the monthly recurring cash flow stream that a performing note can bring. But a lot of the families that we serve here at Mile Marker Club, Joe, really have aspirations to magnify their charitable giving efforts. And I know a lot of NoteSchool clients or members, students that I've had the great pleasure of meeting over the last 10 to 15 years now, generally share that same sentiment about we see ourselves of having a bigger footprint in life, or trying to create a bigger footprint in a good way, and hopefully leave the world a little bit better than the way we found it when we came into it. And so this idea of giving back and magnifying charitable giving, is certainly is part of my plan, and why notes fit into that, because they are good long-term cash flows. So should the good Lord take me away from here too soon, my charities will continue to just step in the shoes of those notes that I'm enjoying my passive income from. And so they have a great way of starting to fulfill part of that life's greater purpose, as you have it very well defined with your goals and have the right people in place helping you to do it, and making sure you're tracking it, that it continues to play out the way your aspirations and your desires wish to have it played out.
And, it's just like Miss Martha Speed said, not only do we need to be a go-getter in this business, we also need to be a go-giver, right?
That's exactly right. And sometimes, Joe, that's hard to not embrace it, but to implement it. Because look, we were all nice and young at one time, right? When we were, coming out of our, coming out of college and that kind of thing. Everything was, within our dreams, but, we didn't have any money. We had to go make a few bucks first before we could think about what our charitable life looks like. And, we can't hardly even think about magnifying charitable giving. We're just trying to figure out what giving, means. Right. Like. And so, and we all find it at different times in our lives. And some of us find it earlier, some of us find it later. And for some folks, it's not a priority. And those are all the right answers. You just got to be honest with yourself what that is. But should you find this to be part of your life's work and calling, notes has a great way of being able to transfer down into those charities, because every charity loves recurring monthly cash flow, just like we do as passive investors with it.
So as we move forward, then, so what's the next piece of that then, Brian?
Well, what I look like, or how I see these market conditions, and you referenced it in your notes section, Joe, back to 2008. I reference it very regularly, and a lot of real estate investors, but really all investors, especially those in alternative investments, notes, real estates, and any other types of alts for that matter. 2008 was kind of a benchmark time frame for all of us as investors, because over this last 12, 13, 14 years is where most of us, not all of us, a lot of us got our financial stride, because the market was so good. Real estate was constantly going up, it still is, Joe, from that data that you shared at the beginning of the TV show here today. And we're at this next pivotal point, maybe like 2008 was, but for my personal story, as you know, Joe, and a lot of the friends of NoteSchool know, that's where I realized after 2008, which was that whole time frame, economically speaking, was very good to me because of a lot of things that I learned at NoteSchool, quite frankly, as it relates to my note portfolio and some of those assets that are still on the balance sheet today. But anytime it was a pivotal point, it was a reinvention point for me, Joe, where I realized when 07, 08 was happening, I was flipping a bunch of homes down in the Phoenix metro market. Fortunately, I converted a lot of those to loans at the right time for all of that. So that was good. But it set me on this 5-year trajectory. What I realized in 07 and 08, I had my corporate gig going on, but I saw this market changing. I'm like, if I don't reinvent myself today, what is my world going to look like 5 years from now? So that was kind of a big lesson for me to learn, that you've always got to be looking ahead. So where we're at today, the sausage has already been cooked, so to speak. I think what our dear friend would use an analogy like that. And so you're always looking down the road and looking forward. So 08 for me, that 07, 08 timeframe, I said to myself, what is the next 5 years? What is my future financial world going to look like 5 years from now? And I think it's still very relevant and very true today, Joe, brought on by the pandemic. We've got social elements happening, political elements happening, economic elements happening. Whatever you think about all of that is going to become part of all of our future financial world. So, today we're always looking forward to that 5 years. And there's basically going to be one of four things that every one of us on the TV show today, you, me, and the audience, Joe, there's going to be one of four things happen. We're either going to have this very optimal financial world that's truly keeping work optional and us living our best lives, or we're going to find ourselves in just with financial security. Social Security's coming. Maybe we still have our pension plan, and okay, well, I don't have an optimized portfolio, but I'm still secure and I can live life. That's the antithesis of best life, is settling, right? And
right, yeah.
Some people will settle financially secure, and that's fine. Of course, the other two of these, you're going to have financial insecurity. Maybe your pension plan did go away, and, maybe you didn't save it all well, and you're just kind of getting by, and by no means is work optional at that point. Or you're just going to be a complete financial disaster. You're whatever has happened. You've got nothing. And unfortunately, in our society, as vibrant as it is and as free as we are in capitalism to go do and get whatever you want out of life, it's all there. There are a lot of forces that are working against us. And unfortunately, and this has been true over a long period of time, more people are financially insecure than they are secure. So there's just, this is why though, Joe, when I look at the next 5 years, I know every one of us is going to be in one of these four categories from now. Right. Okay. And you're either going to drift, which unfortunately is what happens to most Americans. It's just there's not enough giddy up and go for whatever reason, and you just drift. And our society, we're a benevolent society. We allow that to happen, I guess. And so you're either going to drift, or to maintain an optimal financial world, you just got to keep making decisive actions over and over and over again. Like you said, the fear of missing out. You've got to keep looking at ways based on how the market has changed. Remember, we don't control the market, but we got to keep making the changes and keep making new decisions, taking new actions to stay optimized. And so part of what, well, Joe, let me pause there. I
was just going to say, Ryan, that so based on that, then, so what do you see as we kind of, wrap up this part of the show? What do you see? What should folks be doing now to keep on that decisive action, arc going up there for that optimal and the financial security part of this? So what should we be looking for in the world?
Absolutely. So particularly as it relates to notes, you've got to start to understand, how do notes interact with the rest of your wealth, however wealth looks for you today. So I think that's the big thing in realizing that, you've got to make some mind decisions here, Joe, about wealth. And if you're an active note investor and, we've got portfolios where loans are paying off because they're refinancing, and you might go, oh gosh, that's a lot of work to get paid off. Oh, wow, there's a lot worse things that happen. So you might think, well, is it impossible? You've got to get past in your mind, well, this is going to be costly to get to a financial world. Yeah, it probably will be, one way or the other. You're going to have to hire advisors. You're going to have to build out some mechanisms, or it's going to be costly because you're going to be financially insecure or financial disaster. So you got to define, what does costly look like for you?
Right.
You might decide it's just too risky. I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm going to have to change my line of thinking. I'm going to have to do things differently. I'm going to have to, heaven forbid, learn something new. School is never out, Joe.
You're right. You're right. Absolutely. Reinvention.
You know how we look at wealth and wealth management. And frankly, we all just got to work harder. I mean, you hear this, work smart, work harder. Look, this is still about work. Some of the wealthiest families that we serve today, the matriarch, the patriarch, the individual, they're all still working. They've got plenty of wealth, but they're all still working because things can change. And so how we look at, some of these markets is understand, how do you jump the lines, so to speak, and what are not so much shortcuts, but to make sure you're riding the right curve. You're not drifting downward. You're just making sure that you're on the right curve. And how do you, jump some of these lines? And one of the ways I like to look at that is, how might you accelerate what those 5 years could look like? And one of those ways, Joe, is what I call an optimization test. And it's whatever your optimal financial world. Again, my premise is keeping work optional and living our best lives. So that's the optimal, what is an optimal financial world? Allow that to happen. And so it's a constant stress test. It's a constant optimization test. And I think as it results, or as it refers to notes and that asset class, one of the things that I think investors have to decide is, do I want to be managing performing loans and buying performing loans?
Right.
Do I want to be buying and managing non-performing loans? Which, looking at some of that data you just shared, hit me and went, we're going to be back in the non-performing loan acquisition.
Yes, we are. Yes, we are.
I suspect. And so part of that optimization test, those are two different asset classes that require and will have a different input to cause a different output of your optimal financial world. And so testing that against your goals, who your team and how you manage or how you implement, track all of that, those three things from the framework, Joe, is what that optimization test is. And when, as an investor, when you're ready to be really honest with yourself and, go work hard and try to get past some of the mental games that we just as humans play on ourselves, really, is that you've got to find what your optimization is today, what your tolerances are, what your risk levels are, what your capital base is, because this is, frankly, Joe, I think it's important to all of us as investors, but as it comes to raising capital for notes, these are the same issues that your investors are going to be facing if you're going to be working, with other people's money as part of your note business. And I think this optimization component is a big thing, but it's something, the sooner you do it and truly stress test your whole wealth, and then you put a plan in place to keep doing it, it will get you to those desired outcomes a lot sooner.
And Ryan, as we wrap this up, and and guys, just understand we're going to have the after party. Ryan's going to be in the after party, so if you got questions, please make sure and hang around for that. But Ryan, as we do, you were talking about work, right? We're not talking about getting out there swinging a hammer. We're not getting out there talking about we're not talking about working 80 hours a week. We're talking about, to put that into context, that's not what Ryan is talking about. Because some people will go, whoa, well, I don't want to get rich. I don't want to become wealthy and then have to go out there. But if you wanted to do that, you could, right?
Absolutely. That's right. I mean, keeping work optional, and look, it's what I do today. I mean, I just do what I like to do with our clients. I've got a tremendous team of experts here at the club that are, way more experts and enjoy doing different things of the holistic wealth management process. I just do what I like to do today, and it's optional.
And when you do what you like to do, the old saying is it's not work, right?
Correct.